Greetings, welcome, Akwaba. We hope that everybody is wonderful this Sunday afternoon and that you are achieving your highest level humanly possible, mental, physical, and spiritual health. That's our sincere desire for each and every one of you today and every day. And we're glad that you have decided to spend this hour with our Ancestors' Voices, a program sponsored by the All African People's Revolutionary Party. Thank you for joining us today when we talk about white supremacy symbols, part 2. Several weeks ago, we did a part 1 program on symbols used by violent white supremacist organizations. And this is simply part 2 of that presentation, just designed to give you a flavor for what these symbols look like, because a lot of them are commonly used all around you, and you may not know what they are. And it's important to know what they are, because knowing what they are can save your life, because we're talking about people who have a unquestionable history of committing violence against us and getting away with it. So our objective, as always, is to organize our people and all oppressed people to be able to have capacity to fight back against these demons. And the best way to do that is to be prepared. So that's what we hope to do in the next almost 60 minutes. And we're glad that you're here to do that with us. And we give honor and respect to the indigenous people of the Western Hemisphere. We're doing a program on them next week. We certainly invite you to join. Tomorrow, these people still, 2022, still talking about a Columbus Day in this country and in the Western Hemisphere. There's no Columbus Day. He was a drunk, crook, thug. This is indigenous people's land, stolen from them. I don't know about these people in this society, but in our culture, we don't celebrate crooks and thugs. We celebrate the best of humanity. So we just acknowledge that that's not correct. So we'll talk about that next week. We honor our indigenous family members who are fighting for their land back, because this land rightfully belongs to them. And of course, we honor our African ancestors, who are the very reason that we exist here today. I mean, we can never say enough about their sacrifices. But one thing we will say is I just finished reading a book about Amilcar Cabral and the African Party for the Independence of Guinea-Bissau, PAIGC, which is one of our certainly heavily influenced by them and greatly involved in working with them today in their work throughout Africa, from Guinea-Bissau, West Africa, and just reading about them. I mean, I've read numerous books about the PAIGC and Amilcar Cabral, but just reading about the sacrifices they made for our people, I mean, it's overwhelming. And then finished that book, and now I'm reading a book on the Black Panther Party, and I've read many books on the Black Panther Party, and have been mentored by people in the Black Panther Party. So certainly appreciate, most of them are not here with us anymore. And this book has a particular focus on Brother Huey P. Newton. So, just honoring the contributions that all of those folks made towards our liberation and our forward progress as a people, and just thankful for them and just wanting to carry the torch that they lit for us. So we will go ahead and get started. And we'll start, as we always do, just by simply providing you an understanding of who we are. So our Ancestors' Voices is sponsored again by the All African People's Revolutionary Party. Every Sunday at the same time, we have a program and we video it. And you can always watch episodes that have already aired as often as you want and share them. The AAPRP is a revolutionary, independent, mass Pan-African political party that is based in Africa. Our objective is Pan-Africanism, which we define correctly, we would add, as one unified socialist Africa. In other words, what we're saying when we say that is that we believe that the 2 billion people of African descent who are scattered and suffering in over 120 countries around the world today, no matter what we do, no matter how smart we are, no matter how good we look, until Africa is free, united, and socialist, our problems will forever be overwhelming for us. The key to to us addressing the problems we have is not getting a job with Uncle Sam, not getting a job with European capitalist corporations. It's not buying a house. It's not buying a new car. Our problems will never be solved when we just get a new job. Our problems will continue until we have capacity to demand respect as a people. And that's not going to ever happen until we recognize that our situation is not unique to where we were born. Our situation is the result of our people being scattered and exploited all over the planet Earth. And the core of that is Africa. And so until we understand that and can correct that issue and make it a priority for Africa to be free, we will never be free, no matter where we are on the planet Earth. And when we talk about freedom, the system that we utilize to build our capacity, it cannot be a capitalist system where profit is more important than people, because that is the reason why we're in the situation we're in. So it has to be a system based on the principles and practices of scientific socialism. So that's our objective, y'all. That's what we're fighting for. And our work to achieve Pan-Africanism is outlined in Kwame Nkrumah's Handbook of Revolutionary Warfare on the opposite page there. And that book, produced in 1968, lays out the strategy that we're working today on the ground throughout Africa to achieve one unified socialist Africa. And Our Ancestors' Voices, this program, one of many programs that the APRP sponsors, but this particular one is hosted each week by myself, Ajamu, and my daughter, Shukura Umi, both of us active and committed organizers in the APRP. So to get us started on this topic of white supremacy symbols, part 2, I will turn it over to Shakura.
Much thanks, Father. Thank you so much. Greetings, everyone. So I just want to start off by saying that, this piece about acknowledging our indigenous ancestors as well as our African ancestors is really more critical than we even know, because in doing that, we are resisting what this topic and this seminar is all about, right? We're resisting white supremacy. We're resisting colonization. We are resisting any notion that colonized people are insignificant, that colonized people don't matter. We're resisting any notion that colonized people have not been triply and quadruply oppressed for many, many, many years. And more importantly, we are redefining how to take back our land, how to take back our power. We're redefining every time we learn what the indigenous land that we are on is, like literally doing the research and then telling people, I don't live in Memphis, I live in Cherokee land, like literally reactivating that buried knowledge that has not been accessible for so many years. Every time we do that, right? Every time we can tell other people, well, that 75% of the cacao actually comes from the Cape Coast or Ghana, West Africa, like being able to share that information with people who have no idea about what resources come from Africa or have no idea what indigenous land they stand on or commute on or work or do gardening on. Like being able to actively have those conversations is a direct violation of white supremacy. And so that's why we continue to push as many steps forward as we can, because that's one of the best ways that we can slow down the same systemic oppression and this same systemic system of oppression that has been actively trying to take us down for so many years. It's also evident when we correct people on our culture or we correct people on our history. I was traveling back, I think it was 2 weekends ago, Daddy, when we did our seminar, and I was traveling back from a conference, and the conference was all about how African instructors engage in anti-white supremacist tactics in the classroom, what their pedagogy looks like that resists white supremacy. And so most of the instructors were talking about typical things that they do, but I already got a sense, because at this point, you can just tell like who's in an organization and who's not by the way they talk. So majority of the folks on the panel were just individually given their perceptions as instructors. And so when it was my turn to speak, I immediately started in with, well, first, as Africans, we need to understand that this is the indigenous people's land. We already have our land. It's been stolen from us. But if we get reconnected back with Africa, we'll be more engaged with how to deal with white supremacy anywhere. because white supremacy is everywhere. And so I can tell that I blew the socks off a couple of people in the room. But I say that to say, coming back from that conference, because it was not in the city that I live in, I was traveling through a lot of Klan country, and it just made me think furthermore about why recognizing these symbols is so critically important. It is non-negotiable at this point, you all. Like, I can already tell you, I look forward to hearing my dad talk in more context about some of these symbols, but the one that you see on the screen now, if you're joined on Zoom, I passed maybe about 3 or 4 trucks that had this exact symbol on it. And thank goodness I was already privy to it, because my dad and I had already talked about it. So I already was like, oh, okay, when I saw the trucks passing by, and I just thought to myself, this is good. This is good to be able to recognize this and to be able to know that by somebody promoting this symbol, that's the stance that they're taking, which means you already have information. If you know what to recognize, and if you know what that symbol looks like, you already have information. No one has to say anything. No one has to have a question. You can already get that information and already know what's going on. So really important to acknowledge our Indigenous comrades and family, really important to acknowledge our African comrades and family, and also really important to do what? Increase our political education. I know you're tired of hearing us say that, but that means you still have not dove in far enough to get more of an idea of what education you have been missing. See, this same system we live in has taught you, just like my dad just said, that if you go to school, get educated, you should be able to get the loan you need to buy the house. You should be able to get the loan you need to finance the car that you need. And then you should be able to get the loan after that to support your fraternity or sorority organizations, or if you are involved with honor societies, or if you volunteer or give back. Like, those are quote unquote good parts of your life, and that's what you quote unquote worked hard for, right? But there's so much more to it than that, especially because those are all components that support capitalism, right? What we're talking about today is survival based on the fact that if you were colonized, if you were oppressed, if you were even European and you identify as being poor or impoverished, you are still under attack. And you still, especially if you take a stance against white supremacy, are going to be more of a target under attack, right? And so I think it's really important that we just think about, why organizing is so important, why joining an organization is so important, because none of us are going to be able to stop the systemic madness by ourselves. But collectively, we've already been working actively to slow it down. We already have been making the transition even harder for white supremacists to continue on, because we're starting to get more savvy to their tricks. We're starting to get more savvy to their intentions, their methodology, and we have a better idea of what to expect from them, especially because they haven't tried anything new. They haven't given us any new options of how they're going about trying to attack us. And so we continue to think about our ancestors, and we read from our ancestors because, like I said, they've documented what they were going through as well, right? So this is, again, a plug for political education, because if you're reading about what the Deacons of Defense did, if you're reading about what different Congolese soldiers did in Africa and other parts of the West Coast and whatnot, if you're reading about what our ancestors were doing when they first got off the ships, or what they did before they were forced on the ships, like if you're reading about all of these examples, right, then it's going to give you more of an understanding of how we were never, ever, ever just people who took beatings. We were never people who just accepted harm. We were never people who accepted violence. We did everything that we could, and then some, to fight back. And it's those very same principles and values that explain why you and I are able to receive and engage in conversation today, whether you have the ability to hear and you can hear me talking about these things, whether you have the ability to see and you can see the images on the screen, or whether you have another way for the messages to be interpreted to you based on your learning style. It's because of our ancestors that all of us are here today. And so that's also because they decided to join organizations that were working for justice. We don't really know too much about our ancestors who chose the individualized path, right? Like, we may have a few stories if we share them in our family dynamics, but for the most part, a majority of the people that you and I can name, a majority of the people that were born outside the US, a majority of the non-male people who were born outside the US were all in organizations that were working for justice and are still working for justice to this day. And that is because of the sacrifices that they made. So I just want to highlight, if you see the image here, then you should already get an idea that this flag is not supposed to make you feel good. And again, contrary to popular belief, right? Because if you are trying to assimilate and fit in with this crazy country that we live in, then you may have already accepted that this flag, if it were different colors, might have been something that you gravitated to. I've been very privileged and fortunate in my lifetime to understand that this flag was never something I was supposed to feel comfortable with. So for a lot of you, first you have to unpack why you feel so comfortable to an image and a symbol that has always recognized and acknowledged that you are insignificant and that you are considered a resource instead of being treated as a human being. So you unpack that part, and then you move forward to understand that you see the specific blue strip in the middle. This literally implies that this picture is seen on campgrounds, to police cars, social media. There are people who have printed this on their t-shirts. There are people who have this on their jeans and different parts of their body. I've seen tattoos. Yes, I have seen tattoos of this because, again, I know what to look for now, right? And again, I was privileged and able to have conversations with my parents where we could talk about this and they could prep me, especially because I live in Klan country, but also because I'm traveling to other parts of Klan country where I need to be aware of what's going on. So you've seen this image. You probably just may not have known this is what this meant. So this is why we're having the seminar today, to talk more about this. This particular image, the US flag with the colors of black and white and a blue strip across the horizontal center of the flag, represents that people who have this image, whether it's a tattoo on their truck, if it's a bumper sticker, whatever that may be, this image implies that they support the police in direct confrontation to the concept of Black Lives Matter movement or anything else that centers African oppression. In other words, when you see this, this means that people using this image, this symbol, are literally communicating to you that they support whatever the police will do in terms of taking us down as a people. And I can already guarantee you that even though this particular image is a direct violation and prevention of Black Lives Matter movement, people who have this flag are also probably having similar sentiments with Indigenous people and probably trying to do what they can to stop any Indigenous organizations that are working to advance Indigenous people and Asian descent people or Asian descent folks that have specific socialist movement thoughts in mind to help advance Asian challenges and colonizations that folks are dealing with of Asian descent, Palestinian people, like the list goes on and on and on, you all. So we need to be very aware and study these images, print them out, send them out in an email to your family. Instead of celebrating all of these backwards capitalist holidays that are coming up in the next couple of months, print out all of these symbols and put it together in a portfolio and present it to your family members. I laugh, but I'm truly being honest with you. That's what we have done. And that's what I will continue to do, because a lot of my family members would not know this if it walked past them in a movie theater. And we need to be more aware of what we're looking for. If we know what to look for, then we're going to have a better angle when we see it. Because notice that I said when we see it, not if, when we see it, okay? So we need to be very clear of what we're looking for. How are we going to know what to look for? By increasing our political education. Say it with me, increasing our political education. Next slide, please. All right. And so also just pointing out for you all, this is at this point, you know, we've been doing these seminars long enough to talk about some really heavy issues that probably are trigger warning for a lot of folks based on different things that folks are going through. And we understand that. I do want to point out, though, The objective of these seminars is never, ever, ever to cause fear. That's not the objective. The objective is to give you more resources in your toolbox so that you can equip your family, your community, your lifestyle, your partner, whomever you have care and affinity for, so that we all can be better prepared to deal with the attacks and the brutality that has already been targeting us, for so on and so forth. It's not to cause fear and to frighten you. It's to help you understand that people are out there with intentions to do you harm. And I think having very difficult, honest conversations about that is only going to help make matters better. Because it's one thing if you have a hard time swallowing that, which I can't really help you with that, because again, I live in Klan country, so I just have a different perspective than a lot of people. But if you understand that that is the reality, then that means that you need to have a better idea of not being frightened, but using that fear to drive how you respond to the attacks. You can use that fear, because fear is a healthy emotion, in my opinion. You need fear because that's what gives you the, everything is dialectical. So that's what gives you the analysis of whether or not something makes you feel good and safe. And then you understand the opposite of good and safe because something causes you fear or anxiety or makes you feel uncertain, right? So that's the opposite of safety. And so you need fear. Fear is a good thing. That's probably what keeps you alive a lot of times. Because if you also didn't have a sense of fear, then you would put your hand in fires and you would walk into the street with cars coming, right? So fear is a good thing, but don't let the fear drive you away from turning you off where you don't want to learn about these symbols or where you don't want to look for them when you go to Walmart tomorrow. Make sure that you continue to study them. Use that fear to guide you, because that fear is there to make sure that you can be equipped to deal with these things when they come to you. And part of dealing with them is knowing what to look for. Knowing what to look for. I specifically said, when you see people with these symbols, they are communicating something to you, because they're not going to necessarily open their mouth and say, I am a white supremacist. Absolutely not. But communication is not just verbal. Communication is eye contact. Communication is images. Communication is tattoos that you see people wearing. Communication is a beautiful thing. And the thing about communication is people communicate with you even when they don't say a word to you. They are still communicating. I always tell my students, you can never not communicate anything, because you are always communicating something. So if you're seeing people with these images and these symbols, that means they want you to know something. If you are wise enough to do the research and have your political education be high up, then you're already going to receive that message. And then hopefully you have a message that you can give back to them, and we can continue on and go from there. So I just want to close and hand it back to my dad by saying, we're not trying to cause you fear. We're trying to elevate your education from a political aspect, because more political education you have, the more involved you will be to protect yourself, to protect your communities. Notice how I'm saying protecting people in your neighborhoods, not just yourself, but you should be sharing this information with other people. If you're brave enough, maybe you all can have a discourse conversation around this at your spiritual gathering the next time you go, or maybe when you're volunteering with your buddy at the Boys and Girls Club or whatever community organizations you're involved with. You need to bring these things up, have more of these conversations, spread this information so that other people's political educations can be increased. I also think that that's how you build more collectivism and build more group depth on how to go about having these strategies. If you're introducing these symbols and concepts into a group setting, then that's more people who'll be more aware of it. And then you have more of an opportunity to discuss escalation plans on how you all would go about navigating that. If somebody walked into a physical space where you all were in that same circle and somebody walked in and you needed to understand, okay, this person has that tattooed on their face. So that's very evident that this is how they feel about that. What are we going to do as a collective to make sure that we all stay safe and can navigate that safely and quickly, or however that may be, right? So again, like this push for collectivism versus individualism. We don't just want you to take this information and have it in your repertoire. We want you to take it and broadcast it, publish it, let it be known to every single person that you can, because all of us have a responsibility to keep the other people safe. I also want to stress that this is just a reflection that we are insignificant in this society. It's really a trip when you really think about it. To go to somebody's house remove them from their house, force them to get on a slave ship, sail across the world, and drop them off wherever you want them to be, because they are now considered your property. And then when it's all said and done, you're still stealing resources from their home to this day. You have the nerve to charge the people who live there taxes when they're trying to cross over from different countries, because they need to pay their taxes to the French, or they need to pay their taxes to the Portuguese. And you still have the nerve to make sure that the presidents who happen to look like the Africans are in worse embezzlement situations than those who are trying to make a difference, which is how we define neocolonialism, right? And so you have these puppeteer presidents on the continent who are not doing anything to advance the country's situations, politically, economic, whatever that may be. And so we still find ourselves in this jam where we don't have control of our land, which means we don't have control of our resources, which would explain why Africans everywhere are under attack. Because as we said before, and we will continue to say, if the continent itself is not respected, why would the people that come from it be? Why? That doesn't make any sense. So we need to get more control of our land back so that we can have that respect. And I think once we do that, then we'll understand that we're not waiting for anyone. We are the ones that we have been waiting for. We have been here all along. Everything that we need, we have it ourselves. I love it when my dad says that there's nothing wrong with us. He's absolutely right to say that. But this system, if you live in it long enough, will convince you that there's something wrong with you. I don't have to tell you all that. You know that. Because if you have at any point in your life second guessed yourself or doubted yourself, that's a reflection of the system. If at all you are unsure, just trust and believe whatever problems exist in the world, you can automatically blame it on capitalism. Why did you run out of peanut butter for your peanut butter and jelly sandwich? That's capitalism's problem. Why do you have a flat tire? That's capitalism's problem. Why are you unable to get to your job? Or did you just lose your job? That's usually a result of capitalism. So I think in understanding that, we can automatically tie in imperialism to that. And then from there, we can automatically tie in systems of oppression. So again, join an organization working for justice. Don't forget to support our Thomas Sankara, Burkina Faso QR code that we have on the screen. I'm going to pass it back to my dad, but you all need to stay vigilant and make sure you are increasing your political education. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. As always, Shakura. And yeah, just again, the QR code is there for our project work on the ground in Burkina Faso. Please support it. Thomas Sankara Center for Liberation and Pan-African Unity. If you don't have a so-called smartphone, you can, of course, just type in the URL there if you're looking at the screen. And if you don't have that, you can reach out to us at abetterworld.me and we can provide it to you. But we want to definitely support our independent, revolutionary Pan-African projects on the ground that are designed to liberate our mother. So we're going to get into some of these symbols here. And the one on your screen right now, you all, is a symbol used by the Nationalist Social Club. And the Nationalist Social Club is a white supremacist organization. But first, it's important that we understand the difference between anti-colonial nationalism and white supremacist nationalism. And we did a workshop on this one. You should, check it out. Go to abetterworld.me. It's called Patriarchy and Nationalism. We did it just a couple of weeks ago, but you should check it out if you missed it or if you still don't really understand it fully, because it's an important concept to understand, because everything is dialectical, meaning everything has positives and negatives. And so nothing is completely one way and that's it. Nothing is completely good. Nothing is completely bad. Everything has positives and negatives. That's why when people say, well, this person did all these bad things, but there has to be some good in them, they're really absolutely correct. It's just a question of what will dominate. If someone's doing primarily bad things, the bad is dominating. So that's the struggle. And revolution has to be about making the good dominant. So when we talk about nationalism, it's no different. Nationalism has positive and negative characteristics. So for colonized people, people whose land, culture, and history has been robbed and used against them by their enemies, nationalism is always a positive thing. For African people, Palestinian people, the indigenous people of the Western Hemisphere, Asian people, all of these folks fighting for their liberation from colonialism. Nationalism is a positive thing, because what nationalism does for these folks is it provides them a vehicle to reclaim their humanity and their dignity. Obviously, if we're called the N-word so systematically that many of us are confused in 2022 and think it was our idea to start calling us that, that's how confused we are, then clearly, if this is the case, then the medicine for that, the treatment for that, is us getting a heavy dose of understanding who we are as African people, because no proud African could ever call themselves the N-word. I don't care how smart you think you are and how much you think you understand the word. It makes absolutely no sense. And deep down inside, you know it doesn't make any sense, because you don't call the people you love and respect that. You don't have a pastor and call, hey, what's up, man? You don't approach them like that. You don't approach your parents if you respect them like that. You don't approach anybody you respect like that. So clearly, the reason why you don't do that is because you know it's not respectful to approach people like that. So don't bring that nonsense here. Leave that to the people who are dumb and don't give 2 seconds to think about why they do the things they do. We are not that confused here. So we know what we mean when we say, when we decide to make a positive assertion about us being Africans, that's the proper antidote to address the centuries of anti-African colonialism that have been directed at us to control us. That's a positive thing. So for us, nationalism is a very positive thing. But that's different than these European white supremacists who say, well, we're for white people. That's different. What makes it different? Because they'll confuse you. Well, I don't know. He said what's different and I don't know, so there must not be a difference. No, that's not the problem. The problem is that you don't know how to think properly, because there's clearly a difference. Because when we talk about nationalism the way I just described it, we're talking about a process that allows us to reclaim our dignity. Someone that's told us that we're worse than dogs, we're the N-word, and we've asserted, no, we're Africans. We come from a proud history and culture, and we respect who we are, and we are going to build ourselves up. That's a positive thing. That's how we use nationalism. That differs completely because it's based totally on our experience and us correcting our experience, our practical lived experience as human beings. That's what our nationalism is based on. Whereas these idiots, these white supremacists, their nationalism, I'm white. They didn't have anything to do with being white. They didn't get to say, well, I want to be white. They didn't have anything to do with that. So they're asserting something that they had nothing to do with, that has nothing to do with any contribution they've made to the planet or to their lives or nothing. They're just born white. I mean, that's absurd. You're celebrating something you had nothing to do with. So why would you do that? Because you're in the situation, in this system, where whether you consciously recognize it or not, what you do know is that we are no longer willing to live and tolerate being at the bottom of every society on earth. And we're going to fight to the death to change that. And what these Europeans that are asserting white supremacy recognize, whether they consciously realize it or not, is that we are not going to continue to allow them to do whatever they want to do to us, or to allow to happen whatever happens to us. We're not going to allow that. So because of that, the only connection they make is that, well, they're coming after us because we're white. So in their backward thinking, we're asserting that we're white to combat that. No, that's not what's happening there, because we're not coming after you because you're white. We don't have any problem with you being white. We have a problem with this system of oppression. We don't care anything about you being white. You're not that important for us to care enough about you being white. We don't care anything about you. We're concerned about this system of oppression. The white man the other day, he's like, well, it sounds like you just have a problem with me being on the earth. I said, if you drop dead right now, I wouldn't blink. I couldn't care less about you. I'm not concerned about you at all. And I don't know anybody. We can go down my phone and call everybody on my phone, and I bet you I can't find one person that's concerned about you. So that's clearly wrong. We're talking about systems of oppression, and you don't control any systems of oppression. You don't even control when you go to the bathroom, I bet. You can't even control that. So we're not even talking about you. The problem in this conversation is that you have elevated yourself so that you see yourself on par with the white capitalist power structure. When you're not, if you don't believe that you're not, just don't pay your taxes. And not only that, don't pay your taxes in April, but go to the IRS and say, to hell with you. You can kiss my behind. I ain't paying nothing, and let the clock tick past their deadlines and see what happens to you if you think you're on par with them. So this is what we're talking about when we talk about nationalism, is that our purpose for using it is to assert our humanity. Their purpose for using it is to repress our humanity. Understand the difference. It's a critical difference. Okay, so when we talk about groups like this nationalist social club, we're using nationalism in a primarily negative sense because that's how they're using it. And so when we talk about them, we're saying that they're an organization that represents a coalition of white supremacist groups who came together because they believe it's their responsibility to stop the extinction of European people. Now, think about that for a second. Who on earth is working to exterminate European people? There is not a single organization that you can name anywhere on earth who has an objective of terrorizing white people. Not one organization anywhere on earth has that objective. You can't even create a fantasy organization that's done that. There isn't even a comic book about any organization trying to exterminate white people. This is a fantasy that exists only in the minds of backward thinking people. But yet these people believe that. They have convinced themselves of this. So they have a coalition of organizations that are designed to ensure that this doesn't happen, this fantasy in their head. And they recruit among European men. They don't deal with women. And most European women are so just as stupid as the men that we support that. They won't even let you in the group. They don't even think you're capable enough to be in the group, and yet you support them. You're just as dumb as they are. And so that's why we don't see any difference between you and your men. You've been with them every step of the way throughout history, every step of the way. You've aligned yourself with them. So don't try to separate yourself. That's like, I don't like Dave Chappelle. I think he's funny, but I think he's a complete idiot. But one thing he said that I thought was really, really good is the European woman at one of his shows was yelling at him. And she said, we're both oppressed. And he said, yeah, that's true. We're both oppressed. He said, but your problem is that you didn't like the deal that you got. And people cracked up laughing, and she didn't understand. What he was saying is that you were aligned with the European men when they enslaved us. You just don't like your cut that you got. And so that, we are not confused about that. But this organization recruits European men, and their focus is in training on lone wolf violent techniques. Lone wolf violent techniques. That's what these terrorists specialize in. So what is that? Lone wolf techniques are when they go out. They have no intention of coming back. They don't care if they live or die. But their objective is to go out, find you when you're at the supermarket, not paying attention to what's happening around you, find you when you're over there at looking out at the park, just sitting there oblivious to the world, or you're free and safe, so you don't have to pay attention to anything around you. Find you when you're sitting around doing whatever you're doing, not paying attention to the world that's happening independent of you, around you. You're the one they're looking for. And when they find you, their objective is to end your life. And you can't say, well, that's just a Jamu tripping, because it happens every day. These lone wolf attacks are happening every day. A lot of these mass shootings are lone wolf attacks. That's what they are. You thought you were just going to the supermarket or to the skating rink or to a concert, and it ends up being a tragedy. They went there to cause the tragedy. They don't care if they get shot or killed or make it out, because most of them feel like their lives are not meaningful anyway. They feel like we're taking something from them. We're not taking anything from them, but that's how they see it. So that's what that is. So this is extremely dangerous. And the most dangerous part of it is that you could be victimized by someone you've never seen before in your life at a time that you least expected. This is the reason why it's so important to be prepared at all times, because you never know when you need preparation, right? So keep that in mind, and we'll come back to that. And we're going to talk about another symbol, this one you see on the screen here. And if you don't have a screen, you should look at the video afterwards so you can see these symbols, because these symbols are all around you. Once you know them, you'll start seeing them and you'll know, okay, this person means me harm. And you need to know that so you can be prepared. Better to be prepared and not need it than to need it and not be prepared. That's the principle here. So this Swaze Son, black sun, this is another element, and this is their symbol. And this symbol is a German symbol based upon historical German and Norse mythology, right? These people are really into ancient European mythology. And what it is designed to affirm the critical importance of uniting against any perceived threat against the European population. So again, this is a completely different organization from the one I just talked about, but yet they have the same general objectives. They feel like white people are under attack by us and that they have to organize to prevent that from happening. And the thing that's important to understand about this is that when we say organize, these people are training. They're training themselves in firearm usage. They're training themselves in hand-to-hand combat. They're training themselves in how to fight together. They're preparing themselves to wage war against us. And a lot of them, as I just mentioned, are going out doing that. These people get caught, or they find them after they do these mass shootings, like the one that shot up, where was it, Buffalo, where the white supremacists killed a couple of months ago, right? Killed all the Africans there in Buffalo. This guy he wasn't watching football and say, I guess I'll go kill me some colored people. He planned that out. It was a part of an organizational effort. And he went there organized. He had tactical weapons and tactical gear. He mapped that out, you all. The only thing that is uncertain is that you just happen to not live there, if you're listening to this, and not be at that place at that time. But it could easily happen where you are right now. And that's what these people are engaged in. That's what they're doing. It's just because of that, it's so important to understand that these symbols are a reflection, not just of these individuals in these groups, but an ideological move to the right. That's what these symbols represent, even among people who don't necessarily belong to these groups. And that's important, because what that means, you all, is that there are a lot of people out here who support the general aims and objectives of these groups, even if they don't belong to them. And so that makes it that much more dangerous. In other words, there are a lot of European people who feel like they're losing something to us right now. And it makes them much more susceptible to support this kind of ideology and action. And if you don't believe that, just think about what's happening in Europe with all the moves to the right, the fascist moves to the right, the fascists in Italy, the fascists in Ukraine, all of these places where all these fascists have risen to power in Europe. Think about Donald Trump here in this backward cesspool country, and him having over 70 million people vote for him. And his whole platform was xenophobia, and all these colored people are taking something from us white people. That's his whole platform. And 70 million people said, yeah, we agree with that. And they still agree with that. And they always will agree with it. So this is what we're talking about right now, is that you have to understand these are not just I don't live anywhere where there's any white supremacist groups, so I don't have to worry about. No, this is a move to the right ideologically. That's what this represents. So yeah, you have these groups, but you also have police departments who are right along with these groups, same damn thing. You also have people, the what they call the Kevins and the Karens, right, who are in the community, who their job is to notify these Gestapos that you're around. That's what they're doing. They're doing an excellent job of notifying Gestapo police or Klansmen or whoever the hell they call, that you're in the neighborhood so they can come and get you. So these people are organizing against us. There's no question about that if you're paying attention to what's going on. They're organizing against our very existence. And what is our response to them organizing against us? Well, they're anti-Black. Why do they hate us so much? Why do they hate us? All I'm trying to do is live. You're not going to live very long if that's the only thing that you can muster to respond to these attacks. Is that simple-minded and simple acting approach to it. We've got to raise the bar if we want to protect our children and do better. We've got to be able to do that. And it starts, you all, again, Thomas Sankara Center for Liberation and Pan-African Unity. Please support it. That's one of our APRP connected projects on the ground in Burkina Faso. So support that. But all of this that we're talking about starts with a common concept. We could talk about violent white supremacists all day long, but all of that starts with these capitalist imperialist countries. They're the entities that produce the violent white supremacists. That's what they do. The Zionist state of Israel is training Gestapo police all over Africa, all over the Western Hemisphere, Honduras, all over the United Snakes of America, in the Congo, in Ghana, in Ethiopia. The Zionist state of Israel is doing that, is creating fascists every second of the day. The British Empire is creating fascists every second of the day. The French Empire on the lower left is creating fascists every second of the day. The Portuguese Empire is doing the same. And of course, the United States of America is the ringleader for fascism and white supremacy all over the planet Earth, is the ringleader for this now. But they didn't start it because, as an indigenous person from the American Indian movement said at one of our events years ago, he said, Britain's the bastard, or they said the US is the bastard son of Britain. And he was absolutely correct. So all of these folks are in this together. It just right now so happens that the United Snakes is the ringleader. But it's important for us to understand that all of these elements of white supremacy come from these entities, because these entities are based in white supremacist ideology. Each and every one of them is rooted and based in white supremacist ideology. No debate against that. The flags of these capitalist imperialist countries have to be seen as the parent symbols of white supremacy, because the colonization and slavery they birthed is the foundation of all of these right-wing racist movements that exist today. They wouldn't exist without these entities. Nobody can refute that. They wouldn't exist in any way, form, shape, or fashion. So the point of that is there's no way you can say you're against white supremacy and say, well, I'm an American. I'm an African American. I'm a Native American. I'm an Asian American. I'm a white American. I'm an idiot American. There's no way you can be an American in any form, any part of that word be a part of your identity, and then in the same breath say that you're against white supremacy. The only way that can happen is that you either have to be the most ideologically lazy person on the planet Earth, or you just don't have enough sense to fill a thimble, or it could be some of both, who knows? But any logically speaking person, there's no way that they could sit here and say that they are against white supremacy and they are an American, because when you say you're an American, you're saying that you claim everything that this country represents. You're saying that you, at least you're buying in to the basic concept of this country. You couldn't call yourself that if you weren't. And the basic concept of this country is rooted in theft of land and theft of labor. Theft of our ancestors to build the labor, theft of the indigenous land. It's rooted in that. You can't escape that. So that's the reason why I would never call myself an American. And when Shakur talked about she was raised with a clear understanding of that, from the day she could understand the words we were speaking, that's been the message. You ain't no American. Our job is to organize or destroy America, because America is responsible for all the suffering our people suffer. And all these other backward cesspool countries that you see the flags for here are too. Zionist, Israel, France, Britain, Belgium. I couldn't fit them all on here. Germany, all those backward criminal nations. They're all thug nations, each and every one of them. And they're responsible for every bit of suffering that we endure. Spain, each and every one of them thugs, crooks, cesspool countries are responsible for that. So you have got to acknowledge that and say, I'm no longer from this day forward gonna call myself an American in any form or fashion. If you call yourself an African American, just cut that crazy nonsense off in the middle. Do what we do. Say I'm an African in America. Just put that word two letters, I-N, in between it. I'm an African in America. You still get the colonization effect, whatever that is. You have to have of saying America, but you clarify that you're not with this. You're not a part of it. I'm an African in America. That means a totally different thing. I just happen to live here. That's like saying I'm in prison. I'm not saying it's different. It's a totally different thing for me to say my name is a Jammu Penitentiary. That means I'm connecting myself to the penitentiary. It's totally different for me to say I'm a Jammu and I'm in a penitentiary. That makes no connection between me other than the fact that I have to be there. That's what I do. I'm an African in America, fighting against capitalism for Pan-Africanism. That's my identity. People ask all the time. You should do the same. You'll feel better about yourself because you're here because you're a good person. You're trying to be a good person on this planet, but yet you're identifying with a colonizing thief that colonized you. So why would you? The best thing you can do is liberate yourself from that, and you'll feel so much better. And you just can't claim to be against white supremacy by claiming any level of these symbols. And that's the first part, because once we understand that, the rest of this stuff is a lot easier. Then we can understand, because once you understand you ain't no American, then it's not difficult for you to understand that, well, the police are not here to be my friends. It's not difficult for you to understand these institutions are not for you. And then you can begin to see, well, if we want to be safe, we're going to have to organize. The reason why those of us that are not involved in organizations are not in there is because deep down inside somewhere, we secretly believe that we don't need it. It's not important. We think that we're fine just the way we are. I don't care what you say. If you're not doing this, that's because that's what you believe. So when you drop that American, it becomes much easier to see, oh, yes, I do need that. And the only way I'm going to get it is if I work with people to bring it about. And don't tell me this nonsense about we can't organize, we can't win. You know, I just, in June, went up here and organized so many young people, mostly women, mostly marginalized genders, on how to defend themselves against these white supremacists, these Proud Boys. And they did it. They surrounded them Proud Boys and ran the Proud Boys off. And the Proud Boys looked at them and knew, we got to get the hell out of here. These people don't give a damn about us. We are not intimidating them with our presence. They are going to beat the hell out of us if we don't get out of here. And that's exactly right. They would have got the hell beaten out of them. They should get the hell beat out of them. And if you think I'm wrong for saying that, then you need to get the hell beaten out of you too, because these people have a 530-year history of terrorizing us. And some of us are not going to be so cowardly that we think that there's something wrong with us saying, if you continue to terrorize us, we're going to organize and terrorize the hell out of you back. And if there is something wrong with that, like the old song, if loving you is right, I don't want to be wrong. Well, if loving you is wrong, I don't want to be right. Well, then I'm going to say, if saying that is wrong, I don't want to be right. You know, somebody's telling me, well, Jesus, this and Jesus. I'm like, the way you talking about God, I hope that please kill me right now and send me straight to the devil. I don't want nothing to do with no punk God like what you talking about. I don't even believe in nothing like that. If he would have been walking around where I grew up, they would have took everything from him. It left him there naked and shivering. I don't want nothing to do with no God. That's not God. That has nothing to do with no God. I don't want nothing to do with that. So yeah, we have a right to assert that, and we will continue to do that. And not only will we continue to do it, we will continue to organize to build better capacity for more of us to do it, to come together and do it, because those women and marginalized folks, African women, indigenous women, their strength was that they were all organized together. You cannot combat this individually. You cannot do that. You cannot combat this individually. You don't know when it's going to happen. What are you going to do? Never go to a supermarket again? Never go to a movie again? Never go to a store again? What are you going to do? Never go to work again? Never go to anything? Just stay in your house? They come to your house too. So the only way we can combat this is we have to get organized and create communities so that they know, okay, if we go in there, it's going to be some consequences. Like them Proud Boys. We got to get the hell out of here. Let's go. No, I ain't going over there. Then people will run us the hell out of there. That's organization, you all. And I've seen it on so many levels. I remember multiple times I've seen at events, some of our events and some other events. I've seen the Nation of Islam, for example, the FOI, the Fruit of Islam, the security for the nation. There are police there. We had African Liberation Day once, and the police came in. They were trying to shut us down here in Sacramento, and the FOI were out there, and the police came up to talk to us, and the FOI started running drills around the police, like they were running so that they were like coming within, at top speed, coming within 2 inches of the cops. The cops didn't know what the hell. They were like 4 cops. They were like 30 FOI. They were running back and forth. And then the cops were asking me, what's going on? Who are those people? And I'm like, what people? Who are these people running around us? I'm like, what do you want? I don't know what you're talking about. What do you want? And they just, well, you know what they did? I don't even have to tell you. They left. They got the hell out of there because they were like, oh my God, what is this? They're not afraid of us. And I told them, like, I looked at them and said, yeah, nobody here is afraid of you. So state your business and move on. We got things to do. We're out here for a purpose today. So when we get to that level, the problems will cease. And do you think they'll be shooting us down? No, because they'll know that's not going to be tolerated. Just like prison, you kill one of ours, we get to kill one of yours. Oh, okay, well, let's leave them alone because that's we can't handle that. That's what organization will do for us, you all. That's what we want to bring into existence. So we hope that you see that point and you could see the importance of getting engaged. We invite you back next week, October 16th. We want to talk about America's indigenous land, Africa for the Africans. We want to talk about that as we go through these holidays. It's important to remember that. And please go to APRP Forward Ever Shop and buy something. Keep doing that. Give them away as gifts. Y'all know you celebrate these holidays. So buy these. If you're going to do it, buy these gifts and give them. Support the African Revolution. All right. And go to aprp-intl.org and join the All African People's Revolutionary Party. Well, I don't want to do that because I don't like, I'm a capitalist, even though my bank account is overdrawn. Okay, that's all right. We don't want to argue with you. Join the Nation of Islam. No, I don't want to because I like pork too much. Okay, we don't want to argue with you on that. Join the NAACP then. Well, they ain't doing nothing. I don't want to, they ain't militant enough for me. I'm militant. Okay, well, we don't even argue with that. Then start the Ain't Nobody More Militant Than Me organization. And we'll help you organize that organization. That's all we want to do. Is get our people organized. You've never heard us say you have to join our party. To be quite honest with you, we probably don't want to deal with a lot of folks out here right now that ain't ready to be serious about this work. But you got to join something if you don't want to join our party. So join something and go to betterworld.me. These videos, this one will be up shortly. You can spread it around, share it. Please do that. hoodcommunist.org, revolutionary Pan-African blog every Thursday. Check it out. Donate to the Thomas Sankara Center for Liberation and Pan-African Unity. QR code on the screen. We've got our APRP programs there on the bottom. Support each and every one of them. Let people know. If you can't make it, make sure you make it your responsibility to let someone else know it's happening, because this is how we get the word out, you all. And my book, A Guide for Organizing Defense Against White Supremacist, Patriarchal, and Fascist Violence. So I had a European gentleman tell me, reach out to me. And he said, I just bought 10 of your books. We're going to have a study group. And I appreciate that. I get a lot of that, but I get very little of that from my own people. And I want to see so bad more of us engage in this type. I mean, I appreciate him doing that, but I want to get it from our people because we're the ones who need it more than anybody. And we're the ones who do it less than anybody. So let's understand that and build, continue to build, stay strong. We hope you have a great week. We hope to see you next week. We hope to see you on all these programs. And we want to wish you a great rest of your Sunday afternoon. Stay strong, forward ever, backwards never, always stay clever.